Now, moving on, our next speaker is Giorgia Lodi. Giorgia is going to present the European, I think it's pronounced WHOW project, Water Health Open Knowledge, WHOW project. Giorgia currently works as a technologist herself at the Institute of Cognitive Science and Technologies at the National Council of Research of Italy, Semantic Technology Laboratory. Giorgia, welcome. Can you hear us, Giorgia? I think you might be muted. I can see you, but I cannot hear you. I still can't hear you, Giorgia, but we're going to try with the technical team. I can see that the slides are coming.
Can you see me now?
Now I can hear you and see you.
Yeah, okay, thank
you.
Fantastic.
Thanks a lot. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, guys, and thanks for this introduction, and good afternoon to everybody. Yes, indeed, in this presentation, I'm going to introduce you our European-funded project, which is named WHOW, Water Health Open Knowledge, as you said, indeed. This project started in 2020, is funded under the CEF Open Data Program. And it has a very ambitious, let me say, objective, because we want to create the first European open and distributed knowledge graph that is capable of linking two different domains, the water domain and the health domain. And in which way? Using common languages that we want to create precisely for forming this knowledge graph. Because we believe that data spaces shouldn't be, and ecosystems also, shouldn't be other silos that we create. So that's the importance to link also different domains, because these different domains may have an impact on each other. In fact, we believe that creating this knowledge graph can have many benefits for possible stakeholders, for policymakers, for example. They can use this data to check whether the policies they define on these topics are indeed effective, or also for other stakeholders like, I don't know, citizens, because these topics are of fundamental importance for our lives. Understanding the quality of the water that we drink or that we are surrounded of on our health conditions is very much important. The partners of this project are in this slide. There is Celeris Group, which is a company from Ireland who coordinates the project. And then we have 3 Italian partners. 2 are data providers, specifically ARIA, the in-house of the Lombardy region in Italy, and ISPRA, which is our National Institute for Environmental Research in Italy, and then my institution that you introduced, indeed. So in order to achieve this objective, we start identifying a set of use cases. There are 3 use cases currently in the project that are under definition. The first one is driven by ISPRA. It's more related to the marine waters. And the idea here is to link data regarding bioaccumulation and the human exposure to chemicals and biological contaminants that are available and present in marine waters to the health conditions of the people. And in this sense, also monitoring the presence of specific algae within marine waters would be very much important for us. For example, a case can be Ostreoptis ovata, which we know has bad impact on the health of the people. And some data sets here are coming from the European Environmental Agency, for example, but also from ISPRA or also from initiatives like AONET. The second use case is water for human consumption. We are speaking about drinking water, the quality of drinking water, and link this data to data related to the spread of diseases that are diseases connected with the quality of the water that we drink, by the way. And data sets regarding this are, for example, sampling drinking water, the analytic data regarding river and lakes, for example, the health condition by age and sex. This use case is more local, local to a specific territory, and is driven by area partner. The last business use case, it's from my perspective more difficult, especially for finding the data. It's named extreme events. In this case, we want to link data regarding floods, any sea storms, any kind of events that are classified extreme and that are quite frequent if you observe what is going on in our Earth. And we want to link this to, obviously, data regarding human health and also the alteration of ideological cycle and see if this has an impact also on some human being structures. And in this case, other data sets we want to use not only water data, but also data coming from weather sensor data, for example. In order to address these use cases, we first see some challenges here, okay? We divided these challenges into categories. The first one is the technical challenges. I'm a technician, and I would say that these challenges are important, but from my point of view, they can be faced with the current evolution of the technologies. Data challenges are more tricky, and from my perspective also, I'm quite worried about that, because first of all, we have missing data. Indeed, this is a huge issue from my point of view, especially after 2 years of pandemics. We're still struggling in seeing open data in the health sector. And we know now the importance of sharing data, opening up data also for this important domain of our life. We also face issues and challenges regarding closed data. Surprisingly, water data sets are closed, especially for drinking water. We have an European directive that says that environmental data sets are of high value data sets, but still in 2021 we have some closed data. And then heterogeneous data that are heterogeneous in formats, in the semantics, and also in the granularity of the temporal and spatial coverage. So how to address them, okay? So it has been said before with my colleague before, we need to engage. When we speak about open data, there is this engagement part that is fundamental and strategic. The engagement is not only with the external users, a possible user of the data, but also internal to the public institutions, for example, because we need to let people understand the importance of opening up data also for what they do in their working activities. From a technical perspective, the challenges are, for example, we don't want to have any kind of centralized component. For example, yes, we will have the European data portal that will document definitely these data sets, but the data should be distributed and close to the data source if we want to have open data sustainable process. And then we want also to reuse data that are not under our control, for example, data coming from programs like Copernicus. So how to do that? In this sense, the project is now producing one of the first results, which is the design of a technical architecture, which is, we refer to it as linked open data reference architecture. I would like to here to highlight one point. This high-level overview of this architecture was also inspired by a work that I'm conducting with the Publication Office and other people in other member states on the definition of the linked data solution ontology. In there was a discussion about this linked open data reference architecture, and from that discussion, this feature that you see in this slide was drawn. Okay, so it's very inspiring work, that one also for this project, and I think it's nice when these different European projects, collaborate and try to find synergies together. So it's a layered architecture. As you can see from the bottom, you have all the possible different data sets in different forms. There is an important layer, which is the purple one that you see in this slide, that is the data cleansing and the preparation of this data to be part of this knowledge graph, which is the green layer here. The knowledge graph consists of the data models, reference data, very important also reference data, but the data itself that then is stored within a triple source. And on the top of this architecture, you will see also a set of services used by data providers, but also data consumers, because we need to manage this knowledge graph and the life cycle of this knowledge graph. We have to keep it up to date according to the frequency of the data, and we need to expose it to maximize the reuse of this data. And one of the important tasks of our project, as I said before, is one of the challenge that we need to face is to harmonize data because of this heterogeneity that we have seen. We already started with some of the data sets that I mentioned before. This is in this slide, there is a UML activity diagram of a methodology that we are going to apply, which is named Extreme Design. It's an agile methodology that is based on the use of so-called ontology design patterns, so the common patterns that you can use to model recurrent modeling problem that you can see when you manage the different data. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you see some preliminary design patterns that we identified already. If you are familiar with the geospatial data, probably you are familiar also with this type of pattern. The first one, spatial object, feature, and geometry, comes from the OGC Geosparkle standard. The second one, observation measure, comes from INSPIRE, which is the directive that we need to be compliant with because we deal with, as I said before, geospatial data. And the final one, indicator metric and parameter, is very useful for us, especially for the health data. So to conclude my presentation, I said before that open data has a strategic point, which is engagement, okay? And in the WHOW project, we thought that engaging with users since the very beginning of the project was a key point. So we created a so-called co-creation program, which is quite successful, to be honest, because we have done so far 2 meetings, one in May and last one very recently. We have almost 80 participants from single citizens. Okay, I heard before also to put in the open data ecosystem citizens and many stakeholders. So this is the case indeed. It's a nice use case of that. We have citizens associations, startups, companies, and public institutions participating in that. We have 3 Italian regions that officially decided to participate to do this program with their data. And we discussed about many things, about use cases. The slide before is the result of the discussion that we had with our co-creators. And also data set and technical architecture as well with technical people. It was very interesting discussion and very interesting feedback that we want to take in order to improve the work that we can send to the European Commission as a result of this project. We are used to meet every 5-6 months, but we want to have more regular meetings because we found it very useful. And I take the occasion of this talk to invite all the people here that are listening to be part of this co-creation program. So here there are links to our website. You can register to this co-creation program. We have a GitHub repository, and we can start also discussing from a technical perspective also in that repository. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Giorgia, for that very exciting talk. We've got a couple of questions here. First one from Rose. If data is not under control to real data sets and sustainability is to do with how authentic sorry, I'll just read it. I think it's not quite right. If data is not under control to real data sets and sustainability is to do with how authentic we are with data extraction variables, policy and parameters, then how should we approach data mining?
Oh, what's a very difficult question. What I meant before is with the external data is that, for example, what we want to exploit and leverage in our project is data coming from the Copernicus program, okay? We don't have control on those data. We can just reuse them, okay? And so what we are here trying to understand is to leverage, for example, virtual knowledge graphs. So we construct knowledge graph on the fly in order to link this data to the knowledge graph of each data provider contributing to our WHOW knowledge graph, so that to let end users query the data in such a way to query also data coming from the Copernicus program, for example, that we put in a way according to the common language that we are going to provide. And so on that, then you can obviously, on top of that, create services, data mining services, and so on. And in Copernicus is authentic. I mean, it's an official program and so on. Obviously, we don't want to use any type of data without any kind of provenance indication and official indication. We want to create a data space, let me say, because it's data space with these two domains coming from institutional also data. I don't hear you. Sorry, I no longer hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. Really, I cannot hear you. I see you speaking, but okay.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. So the final question is, what would be your methodology to tackle heterogeneous data?
Yeah, the point is to create a common layer from a semantic perspective. So what we are going to do is to create so-called ontologies and possible network of ontologies that will allow us to create a common language, okay? And using semantic web standards, so the standards that are used for linked open data, then we can harmonize also the heterogeneity of the format. It's not easy. It's not an easy task, as I said, because there are differences between the data and the semantics, but taking definitions also coming from the directives in these sectors, and coming also and taking into account also the already existing data models that institutional partners like, for example, ISPRA is developing, we believe we can definitely target this challenge. Thanks.
Giorgia, thank you so much for your energy and for your wonderful talk. Best of luck with this exciting project for the future.
Thanks a lot.